Hopefully I blend in. All right. Hello there. Today's video is all about HOAs and how you can fight them for your right to grow food in your backyard or front yard. Hi, I'm Christina with Forever Food Forest, a channel where I explore ways of growing food without the use of herbicides, pesticides, or commercial fertilizers. And instead, I rely on permaculture, gardening principles, and other natural farming techniques to grow food. HOAs, they're as American as Costco pickup trucks and mortgage-backed securities fraud. If you don't live in an HOA or you're outside the United States and you're wondering what's the big deal, I thought it was the American dream to own your own home and have the freedoms to do what you want with it as granted in the Constitution. You'd think that, but not so when it comes to the HOA. And a lot of times these HOAs make rules forbidding vegetable gardens, citing cockamamie reasons such as they attract wildlife, that pesticides and herbicides used make people sick, and lastly, it makes the work difficult for landscapers. But that's besides the point, because the real reason is they hate poor people, and growing your own food reminds them of poverty. Now, people have been growing their own food for millennia. However, the scarcity mindset around it entered the American subconscious during the Great Depression, when people were actually forced to grow their own food in order to survive. And it continued through World War II, where people were encouraged to grow food through the Victory Gardens program. You weren't American if you did not grow your own food. But then something changed. The war ended, and because times were so good, people didn't want to grow their own food anymore. It was just easier to go and buy whatever you needed at the supermarket. And it is at this time that the lawn became a status symbol. If you had a nicely pristine manicured lawn, it told everyone else that you were so well off that you did not need to grow your own food. As part of my research for this video, I ended up briefly moving into an HOA-based community so I can supply you with the most accurate and relatable information. Now, when talking about HOAs, you have to remember that not all of them are created equal. And to know whether gardens are allowed in your specific circumstance, the best course of action is to consult your CC&Rs, which is covenants, rules, and restrictions. Some HOAs do allow garden beds, while others forbid vegetable gardens altogether. And what's allowed is going to depend on your specific HOA. If your community forbids vegetable gardens but allows ornamentals, you do have some options and ways to, let's say, cheat the system. So here are some plants that you can grow as ornamentals that are also edible. Cranberry hibiscus. Cranberry hibiscus has really beautiful foliage that you can also add to salads and stews. Longevity spinach, which looks a lot like this, and the leaves are also edible. Okinawan spinach is another pretty ornamental that you can also eat. If your community allows flowers, then you can grow something like broccoli, because broccoli heads are actually composed of hundreds of tiny little flowers. And if anybody questions it, you just let your broccoli go to flower and prove them wrong. In the summer, you can grow okra. Okra flowers are really beautiful unless somebody is privy to what okra looks like, which a lot of people who don't grow their own food are not even going to be able to recognize. Another pretty ornamental that you can grow is roselle. Roselle is heat tolerant, very pretty. It has pretty flowers, and once the flowers are finished blooming, they form these calyxes that when you bite into them taste like cranberries. And roselle makes a really excellent addition to salads. You can also make it into a drink that's high in vitamin C. Also, you can grow something like a mamey, which is a very pretty tree, and maybe even some pineapples. Blueberries, which for 80% of the year look like scraggly bushes. And these right here are goji berries. Turmeric. Looks very nice, even grown in pots. And let's not forget herbs. Rosemary makes a really pretty hedge plant and is also edible. You can grow mint in pots. And there are certain varieties of basil that look beautifully in the landscape, such as purple basil, Thai basil, and African basil. The key to staying under the radar with your HOA is to keep it all clean and maintained. Don't plant messy plants like pumpkins that are going to encroach onto your neighbor's property. Don't plant passion fruit or sweet potatoes that are hard to contain. Now, you might be thinking, what if I just start a garden in my backyard? How is the association going to know what I'm doing? And what can they do about it? Well, one of the things that they can do is charge you with fines. And if you don't pay those fines, they will put a lien on your house, and eventually you could lose your house. However, it all really depends on how strict your association is. Some of them don't even care about the rules, while others are very strict about enforcing them. And so that brings me to the next point, and that would be to come up with a site plan to present to the heads of the homeowners association. And this is going to do several things. It's going to show them that I do have a plan in place, and it's going to assure them that I'm not going to create a big mess and a headache and a problem for the community. If you want to make sure that you will not get in trouble, the best course of action is to get on the board of your HOA, become an officer, and then you can make your own rules or decide which rules are being enforced. And if you don't have the time to serve as an officer, you can also try to bribe some of the members by bringing them fresh veggies, doing a presentation highlighting the benefits of growing your own food, and assuring them that you are not going to create a problem. If this was my blank canvas and I was dealing with an HOA, I would propose adding a couple of fruit-bearing trees, nothing too messy. You don't want to add mulberries. Stick with something that's self-contained. For example, avocados or even a citrus inside a pot. Now, the great thing about this spot is that it's actually elevated, so you could plant some peaches and even heat-tolerant apples. But the key is you don't want to make a full-on food forest unless your association allows it. And then in this area, I would also plant some herbs and flowers to keep it nice and pretty and contained. Now, moving down here, this is a great spot to plant native plants that are going to supply food to bees, butterflies, and native birds. You can see the edge of where civilization ends and Florida wilderness begins. You see that? That's what we call a loophole. It's a Florida native, an ornamental, that's also an edible, the Florida beauty berry. The berries can be made into a jam or a preserve, and are also a food source for native birds. Right here, a great place for a pathway. Maybe a couple trees, an understory layer of blueberries. And when you are designing your layout, you want to think in areas, still leave plenty of green space so you're not making your HOA angry. And you can do that by making sure that everything is neat, orderly, and most importantly, intentional. So if you are growing in the ground, you can add pavers or edgers along the edge. Okay, so I'm walking and I'm actually noticing that some of these homes are growing their own food. I saw a vegetable garden with raised beds, and then I saw somebody growing food in 5-gallon buckets out on their patio. I'm creeping some more, and I saw another house that has a bunch of basil growing in their little front yard, along with some roses and flowers and things like that. I just saw a banana. So you can grow your own food. It doesn't have to look like a food forest, but every little bit, helps. It helps being outside. So after spending about a week living in an HOA community, which I thought I would hate, it turns out it's actually kind of nice. The only thing that bothers me is the lack of composting facilities. In our food forests, we end up composting a lot of our food waste directly in the ground, and I don't think that would fly with the HOA. However, there are solutions, and one of them is using one of those above ground composters. Now, obviously, you're not going to be able to compost on a large enough scale to provide you with enough material to fill garden beds. However, even that tiny bit that above ground composter can produce is going to help you grow healthier vegetables and plants. Okay, we got to do something about that wall because right now it's giving Iron Curtain, it's giving Berlin 1989, maybe some shampoo ginger or tropical natives, because that is depressing. Vina kitten face. Oh, those are bald eagles. Those are bald eagles. Holy crap. America, the beautiful. Now guys, you made it to the very end. Thank you for watching. If you have any HOA success or horror stories, make sure to drop them down below in the comments. If you haven't hit that like button, make sure to smash it on your way out. Subscribe if you're new. And one last word from our sponsor, me. If you didn't know, I started a website, foreverfoodforest.com. Go check it out. Sign up for the newsletter. And also, I just rolled out a new interactive growing guide. So if you're wondering what can I plant for October, type that in, type in your location, your soil type, and this garden guide will give you custom suggestions based on your location. All right, guys, I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye. We gotta do something about that wall. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down that wall.